interviews that you've done, I know you had RFK Jr. on your show.
Yeah.
Just really curious to know, because I haven't had a chance to watch that whole episode. What was your takeaway from that interview, and how do you think he is going to shake up this race? Who will he impact more?
Well, I'll start with the first question. Like, it was, I didn't know what to expect, but I was so excited and very curious. It was difficult. He can go on and on and on, and he tells incredible stories. I learned a lot from him. But he's very different from Dana White. He's very different from Sharon Osbourne. Adam Kroll is dropping right now. Jillian Michael, like, as far as having a conversation, very, very different. I was not trying to go deep on political issues because he does that everywhere he goes. My goal for my show is to have conversations with people. And I hadn't met any one of the people I've had on except Matt Barnes, the NBA player. It's the only person I had met previously, even Dana. We had just communicated for years through social media or whatever on live TV, but never in person. So I just want to get to know who they are as people. And he was tough. He was tough I wasn't trying to crack him or anything. I just wanted to go deeper. Like, what's your why? I believe that when we figure that out in people, we can be so much more forgiving of, even if we disagree with them on things, but everyone's got a story. And we all try to make it look so perfect and glamorous. But when we're open about it, others feel, I've realized this in my own personal life and professionally when I've shared, people have come up to me, written me letters that have made me cry saying, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. You went through a divorce too, with kids, like teenagers. So I was trying to get there with him. I got some because I was genuinely curious about him as a human being. And he's been through a lot. And as a Catholic, with 2 divorces, with the drug use, with all of these things, like, that's a lot. With the abortion topic, which he didn't like me pushing. And then we fell all out from that. I mean, he wouldn't answer. I was like, even up until birth, full term. And at first he got the what, and I pushed, and then you saw the answer. And he said, even up till birth. And
that was like shockwaves. Yeah.
There's shockwaves. And I'm like, and the only reason I went there is because he'd been inconsistent in the past. I did my homework.
Right.
And I didn't have to do much homework. He'd been inconsistent. So I'm like, okay, as a Catholic, as a woman, and as a voter, I want to know. When he said that, I'm like, wow, you just went there. And he said, it's okay with full term. So 48 hours later to release a statement and saying, I have now learned. I'm like, learned. So he's a smart man. He knew before. And that was fascinating. I'll say this, right after right after I got done with him, and I'm so grateful, Nicole Shanahan came in. And so they met, going out the door, and then she came and sat down. And then when I asked her about her stance on abortion after that, she disagreed with what he had said. I was like, he just sat here and said full term. She's like, no, that's not what he meant. I'm like, if you guys are not on the same page, that's an issue to not be on the same page.
Just slightly.
No one really picked up on that, I guess, and I thought that was interesting too. But I really like her as a human being. Like, she's super cool. We have very different views, so I'm grateful that people like that who think differently are saying yes. Maya Bialik could not be more, further left than me, and she said to me at the end, when I met her, you guys, in the lobby, I could feel she was a little cold, and I thought, this one's going to be tough. But I respect her. She's brilliant. And I respect so much that she's done and what she's been through. And at the end of my interview, I hope you have a chance to watch that. It got me choked up because she said, I have to tell you, I was nervous to come on with you because I did my homework and I didn't know what your goal was. I didn't know what you were going to ask me. And this was a pleasure, and I'm so glad I did this. And it meant the world because we are opposites in many ways. But what we found, I thought we had a lot in common too. Yeah. And when people can converse, you realize how much we have in common as human beings, much less women and mothers. So if we put this aside and are just kind, you never know what can happen. And now I feel like I could call her up and ask her for advice. Anyway,
but don't you think, Sage? I mean, going back to the Gen X thing, back when we were in college, like in our college years and after, maybe up until, I don't know, like early 2000s, I feel like we could do that. I mean, we talk about that a lot on our show about how liberals and conservatives could hang out and be friends, and we could be in family units together and get along. And now it's just, we're so divided, and it's so different now. So different.
It's sad. It's sad.
It is, because you're right. We do have more in common, I think, with one another and just everyday things. If you take politics out of, I know it's hard to do that now. And I think that's almost impossible for people to take politics out of the equation. But if you try, then it's like, okay, look at everyday things. We really do have a lot more in common than people think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we just have to not quit.
Right.
And then sometimes we need to know when to quit. And I can be guilty of that too.
We are too.
This stuff, you guys, did you know that there is a health guarantee when you try Field of Greens? If you do not have better test results at your next doctor's appointment after you've taken Field of Greens for a few months, you can get your money back. That's freaking amazing. So if you're taking a supplement daily, that's great. But this helps you get all the nutrients that you would normally get out of all the fruits and veggies that they recommend that you get every day, which is like nearly impossible. But you can get it with Field of Greens. This is not a watered down extract. This is organic superfood. It is whole fruits and vegetables. And the fact that it's backed by this health guarantee, I don't know why you wouldn't want to try it, especially because on top of all that, it's freaking delicious. You just take a scoopful, put it into some water. They actually say you can put it in milk, other non-dairy beverages, fruit juice, club soda, sparkling water. You can turn it into a smoothie by adding banana, blueberries, and almond milk for a delicious smoothie. You're getting like so much goodness in this little jar in one scoop, and it's got the guarantee. So if you want to feel more energetic and you just want to feel better, this is the key. You can get a 15% discount off of your first order plus free rush shipping when you go to fogchicks.com, FOG Chicks. That stands for Field of Greens, fogchicks.com. Don't forget to use code CHICKS and you're going to get that discount. It's good stuff, you guys, and it's got a guarantee. Back to like what you thought, how you think RFK will sort of shake up this race. Do you have because everybody's all over the place on that question, right? Some people are like, oh, he's going to take, Trump voters. He's going to take Biden voters. Did you get any sense of that in your discussion?
No, I didn't. And it was, 6 weeks ago or so. A lot has changed since then. I watched something recently when he went down to the border, and that was something that he was very adamant on my show about. That's the very first thing he would do on day one in office is close the border. And then I saw a piece where he went down there and how they set up the chairs right where Trump's wall ended. And there was this big hole where people are going through, and the difference, and they're on the same page on the border. And I think that's obviously it's probably top 2 issue for me. And he and Trump being on the same page with that, I think could make a huge difference in who he might choose to align with. I don't know that you want to be related at all to Joe Biden right now. And I'm not talking about someone who leans right. I'm talking about from a human aspect, and it's such a disaster. So, and I think at the end of the day, he would take more votes away from from Biden. And I asked him about the situation with his family, aligning, like specifically going on that stage in Philadelphia during, a rally and saying, sorry, brother, we're aligning with this guy. And one of his family members obviously works for the Biden administration, but I thought that's gross. And if the Biden administration refuses still to give him Secret Service this close to the election, how could he then just cast it all aside and align with Biden? I don't know.
Yep.
And they've known each other for years, right? So I can see him. I can see him helping the Trump team out. I'm waiting. We need to hear something soon, right? Whether it's the vice presidential candidate, whatever. But I think they have too much in common, actually, for him to not align with Trump.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
You said that the border is your number 2 issue. What's your number 1 issue?
Yeah, I fluctuate. Journalists here asking great follow-up questions. No, listen, national security for me is I'm scared to death.
And they tie together. I mean, those two, you can't extricate them from one another, right? Like,
correct.
Now you
I
can.
mean,
Yeah.
Again, I look at the human element, not political, with our current president. And number one, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that his family,
right?
I've been saying this for years because I interviewed Joe Biden a month or two after he took office. And I noticed it then on an interview like this when I was still at ESPN. And in the commercial break beforehand, actually, it was before we started rolling. We had to tape it, of course. He trailed off. We were having a conversation about football before we started. And I was very aware, and I was concerned. My grandmother died of Alzheimer's. Like, I'm very sensitive to that with the elderly. And I watch it. I turn away because it hurts me, even though I don't like the job he's done as president. I don't like him. I don't like anything. But I have empathy for that, and his family has allowed it.
Oh yeah, they have. It's it's disgraceful.
Then, so why would? And you see these world leaders, they're just laughing and licking their chops. I mean, there's so many things that I'm surprised we haven't been hit yet.
Yeah. We agree.
It's about protecting us, and someone who actually, and I know people, and I'm sure you do too, who are pretty close, have worked alongside Trump, in like a security type capacity, and what they say that they witnessed when he's, in a small private group with the leaders from other countries, how he relates, how disarming he is, how much they like him and respect him, everything. That is what we need. And I'm so tired of people not being able to separate their emotions and their feelings from using their brain and common sense and choosing who they vote for. It's actually really that simple. I was with some people this weekend in Indianapolis, and great people, and they're like, I just can't. I mean, he's a criminal. I'm like, you stop with your talking points. And my question, name me one thing where we are better off as Americans in the last 3 years with him as president. And they changed the subject.
Oh my gosh.
No one can answer. Just give me one. That and something. It has to actually be a fact, not your opinion.
Yeah,
So
and they're willing to
politics.
they're willing to sacrifice their kids and their grandkids for what? For such severe hatred over one guy.
And that's why it's cool to see so many people now standing up. Hollywood people, musicians. It's really cool, and that takes courage when you're out there. I mean, that is where it gives me a little hope. And you see in the Black community even, and rappers, and they're yelling it, and they're coming out like, enough of this. And how about recently when he was Trump in Detroit? I forgot where he was at, and he was sitting with these pastors and said, Bob's him to see us, and Biden's never coming. You're in the hood. Thank you.
Yes.
Like, it matters when you show up as parents or as politicians,
Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Is exactly right.